couple of guys I'm going to focus on now. I realize Ladd McConkey may not be for everybody because some of the news is moving in the wrong direction. The Chargers have had an injury in the offensive line with Slater out for the year, it looks like, and they've added Keenan Allen, what's left of him in his 30s. So okay, fine. It's still a condensed target tree. And once McConkey and the Chargers kind of met each other and got cooking over the last half of the year, he produced at a 1,600-yard pace. Then he had a monster game. I think it was 197-2 in the playoff loss to Houston. And McConkey, you think of him because of his build. You think, oh, he's a slot receiver. And now Allen's there. What's going to go on there? Well, McConkey was actually outstanding as an X receiver, as an outside receiver last year. And I think he and Bowers were maybe a little bit screened coming into the NFL. They obviously had pedigree and people were excited about them, but Georgia didn't throw the ball that much. And I realized the Chargers may not throw the ball as much as some other teams, but McConkey to me is uncoverable. I think the genie's out of the bottle. He produced at an elite level in the second half of last year. That playoff game means something to me too. It's a football game. It's the most important football games of the year. Why shouldn't we count that as part of our strategy and evaluation and all that stuff? And the other player I'll mention here, because I'm usually not a vanity tight end guy, but George Kittle, he's typically a player who has to do it on efficiency. He doesn't get the volume some other players. He may not even get to 100 targets in some season, but Deebo Samuel's gone. I don't know when Brandon Ayuk's going to play. I do like Ricky Pearsall and I do like Juwan Jennings, but they've had uneven starts. We know Pearsall didn't play all of last year. Jennings has had kind of some stops and starts this summer with contract and injury issues. I think it's possible that this could be the year where Kittle gets a bump in volume. And even if he doesn't, his efficiency is so good. They finally got him going as a red zone guy last year. He's probably got the most distance scoring potential at the tight end position. And I think I like Brock Purdy more than most people do. We obviously like Kyle Shanahan. So generally not a vanity tight end guy, but Kittle makes a lot of sense to me. My priority pick, the first guy I'm looking to is Ladd McConkey.
Now, I also like Brock Purdy, so you're talking to the right audience here. Yeah, Purdy, just that solid, like low end QB1, has a very easy schedule this year. Doesn't have a bye week until week 14, so he's almost like a set it and forget it quarterback that you can just kind of drop in there, and you can get him so late that you can just load up at the other positions, and your team looks pretty darn good at that point. And Purdy can give you decent enough quarterback play. He's not going to win you your league necessarily, but he's certainly not going to lose it for you. I love both those picks. I think it's hard to argue with either of those guys. I mean, on a per game basis last year, you said it, like the efficiency from Kittle. Everyone talks about Brock Bowers and Trey McBride and the seasons they had, but Kittle was the number one fantasy tight end last year in fantasy points per game. And you're getting him the cheapest of these elite tight ends or vanity tight ends, like you're calling them. So yeah, I really like him. And he's also someone, and I don't know if it's because of the injuries to the 49ers receiver core or what, but I feel like his ADP has slowly crept up. He was a little bit cheaper a month or so ago, and then now he's getting up kind of right close to where McBride is. He's starting to go a little earlier there in the third round. And then for McConkey, I mean, it's been such, mostly positive news around the Chargers all offseason. And then sure enough, as they get back in camp, now some things start to happen that could potentially impact him. It's nothing that's going to scare me away, right? The Keenan Allen being there, this is not the same Keenan Allen. This is 33-year-old Keenan Allen. I think he's much more concerning for the other wide receivers that they have, and he could take volume away from those guys and from the tight ends. I don't think he's going to impact McConkey that much. McConkey's just such an awesome player. And, the injury, you mentioned it earlier, the Rashawn Slater injury. I haven't seen an update on this. If you have, correct me. We don't know for sure that it's going to be a season-ending injury, and I don't want to jump to conclusions because we saw a few weeks ago with Justin Fields that a guy can leave on a cart and everyone thinks the worst and they think he's out for the season, and then he ends up being okay and he still comes back and he's going to be fine. For Slater, though, some of the signs, I mean, him getting on the cart, the teammates coming around and showing him some love, the towel over the head, the way it was described, that all kind of points to potentially it being a long-term injury. And that would be awful because that offensive line, I think, was coming together. 3 first-round picks, arguably one of the best tackle duos in the league. They bring in Mekhi Becton for the interior of that line this year. I was pointing to that as something that was going to be a big strength, a reason that I like O'Marion Hampton so much. And yet now we're going to have to see what happens with Slater. It'll be awful if they lose him for the season, though, Scott.
One other thing I have to mention, McConkey has missed a fair amount of practice time himself with an undisclosed injury. I'm not at the point of my panic level on that is still extremely low, and I haven't moved McConkey down in my rankings. But there comes a point if that seeps into the middle of August, I'll have to address that and maybe change my strategy. But that's not. I just want to, notify everybody that that's something we have to monitor. And Harbaugh is not one of those coaches who gives us, most teams don't want to tell you a lot about injuries. I think Mike Tomlin is one of the more forthright guys. I mean, with Bill Belichick, you were lucky that he could see there was a game on Sunday, right? And let alone, his injury report where he had like 47 guys listed as questionable week over week. But just keep an eye on McConkey. I'm not concerned about it right now, but that's something that I may address later in the month if this trend continues.
Before we move on to the fourth round, I got to ask, how do you feel about the elite quarterbacks going in the third round? Because I think a lot of times they do go off the board in this round, talking about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels as well. I found myself taking a lot of those guys. I like just kind of locking down that position and knowing that they can give you a multi-point advantage, over the course of the season per week. Do you find yourself taking those guys at all? You said you're not necessarily a vanity tight end guy, but are you a vanity or elite quarterback guy?
I'm thinking long and hard about Lamar Jackson. My rule of thumb is once you stop taking running backs and receivers that you cannot wait to draft, it's your turn. You're on the clock and you just want to pound that draft button. You want to get everybody else going. You're so excited that the player you've been targeting has landed to you. Once I stop that tingly feeling, then I'm like, well, this position's getting flat. This receiver, Matt has talked a lot about the receiver position looking flat. He's going to pass, partially because Matt is so good with wide receiver analysis. And this is something you do with your draft strategy. Matt's really good at receivers. So he wants to leave some slots open to take those guys later in his draft. When that third round starts to get a little bit hairy, it's really tempting for me to take Lamar Jackson because we know the quarterbacks score the most points. Of course, what matters is how many more points they score, the delta against the other people that people are starting. That's the other reason for vanity tight end. Remember those years where Kelsey would be the number one tight end, and the difference between tight end 1 and tight end 2 was the same as like tight end 2 and tight end 27 or something like that. That wasn't that uncommon a few years ago. Every year, of course, is different. But generally speaking, I wouldn't be a vanity quarterback guy. But once that third round gets a little bit hairy, once I'm no longer excited about the running back and receiver pool, I don't know if I'd go for Allen. It depends, and maybe you can sell me on some of his receivers later on this show. I'm a little bit nervous about Shakir being hurt. It blows my mind that he won an MVP. Top touchdown catch guy on the team was Mac Hollins with 5 touchdowns. It just shows you how much Superman was in Josh Allen's game last year. But I'm thinking long and hard about Lamar Jackson being my pivot the moment those other two positional pools start to look flat.
It's also funny too. I've been in a lot of drafts where as soon as one of them goes, the next 3 picks, it's just boom, boom, boom. It's
They're dog
Lamar, it's
whistles. It's a dog
Allen,
whistle
and then
pick. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, totally. As soon as they go, everyone panics and goes, "Oh my god, I got to jump in there." If you see them go a little bit later, it tends to be the same way. Just as soon as one goes, boom, they're all off the board there.